All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Horse Racing Happy Hour.
New music. New season, let's
right
go.
there. I'm feeling it. I'm in the zone. I don't even know what that means, but, you know, I was watching two basketball players play two football players in golf. It is sports in the summertime.
Welcome to late June, folks.
And Major League Baseball has the worst TV package deal of all time because nobody can watch them. So
I don't know what they're protecting besides nothing. It's really not well
protecting.
done.
They're protecting growing their sport. So that's what it is. That's all there is to it. But
you know what we shouldn't do tonight is have Yankee guys on. That's what we should.
No, you know what we should do? The Reds just went to Baltimore and took 2 out of 3.
There it is.
So we got to bring on John Piazzik and Dan Illman so we can talk about this area's domination over Maryland. So.
Well, speaking of baseball, I'm still riding the high from Domingo Germán's perfect game the other night, which was
you're a Yankee
as a Yankee fan, extremely exciting. And I stayed up till about 1:30 in the morning just on like adrenaline, and it hit me at about 2:00 this afternoon. Like, oh my God, I'm on no sleep, but I powered through. And now I'm here, and obviously a big weekend across the country on tap. And I was thinking too, because Louis texted me just prior to the show, and he said it's going to be an Ellis heavy show, and that's probably the first time anyone has said that on a podcast with like mass appeal.
That's fair enough.
I mean, if we have mass appeal, then I appreciate that. Thank you. Listen.
Look, I don't know what mass means, but I agree that we have mass appeal. There you go. How's Dan Illman doing, speaking of mass appeal?
I prefer handicapping baseball like I handicap horse racing. I look for upside. The Yankees, their time is past. The Baltimore Orioles, they are the in thing. They're the cool thing. You've got your Adley Rutschman. You've got your Ryan Mountcastle. You've got your Felix Bautista. This is a young team to watch.
Well, you know, it is my civic duty, even though I am a Yankee fan, it is my civic duty to hope that the O's do well in games that the Yankees are not in. My ideal O's season is that they win 86 games a year, come in second or third, and don't bother the Yankees as the Yankees do their thing. That's kind of my dream season.
We got a pretty good shot at the 86 to 90 wins a year for this year. I think that's probably right on par. I mean, they're one of the top 10 teams in baseball.
The Reds are a good 2-year-old. The Orioles are a good 3-year-old, and the Yankees are a 6-year-old that probably needs
maybe even a gelding.
I'm at the farm, yeah, right.
But the what's amazing about the perfect game is that there's only been 17 complete games in all of Major League Baseball this season. Like, it's just the idea that you're going to see batters for the third time is almost gone in Major League Baseball. And so,
Did you see that Luis Arias down in Miami has already faced more pitchers this season than Tony Gwynn's best hitting season with the Padres?
Doesn't surprise me.
He's already seen more pitchers. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's wild.
It's crazy. So we could talk baseball all you guys want, but I mean, I think we got to talk a little horse racing.
We probably do.
Yeah, you know. So,
maybe the show.
You know, we love having you guys back on. I guess you guys are probably battling for top spot now. I mean, you all have to be battling. You know, you've been on more than Shervin now, I guess. What do you think, Louis?
Louis, it's an interesting question.
Shot.
No, I apologize. I'm turning lights off to see if they work. That was a bad idea.
Yeah, does not help.
All right. There we go.
All right. Let's get
technologically not great at this. More than Sherva, probably just because of those Maryland shows. The thing that's happened is Matt Dinnerman hasn't been on for a while, and we actually like Matt Dinnerman, unlike Coastal Elite Dan Illman, who people like, but I don't. And so it's just, it's one of these. This is a tough racket. This horse racing podcast thing. There's only 312 of them, and so to
312
to get the top people over and over, instead we go to Dan Illman. It is.
Well, speaking of Matt Dinnerman, sorry.
To celebrate a year on the air, you've had Dan Illman on more than anybody else, and you still got a show.
There it is. Somehow. Right?
Somehow.
Coming up on 4 years. There you go.
Well, speaking of Matt Dinnerman, he was actually at the perfect game the other night.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, it's Matt Dinner, of course. Yeah, we get it, man. Right. We get it. You have great hair. You get to go to perfect games. We get it. Great.
So you ever heard me say that Dinnerman looks like Joey Votto's nerdy little brother?
Oh God, you're right.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but he does.
Yeah.
Oh, we love Matt.
All right. Before we go too far down the rabbit hole, we have one big race we need to talk about from last week, and it was the performance from Two Phils here at Thistledown, winning the Ohio Derby. So let me get this all queued up. Zach's leaving me high and dry.
There we go. Look at him get outside there. Am I calling this, or is Chris Griffin calling this?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay. Well, obviously,
we got boys.
You see Bishop's Bay trying to cut the corner here, and then you get Two Phils on the outside. The fascinating thing is right here. Boom. I've always wondered, and Dan, you could probably speak to this a little bit better. When those horses get going, do they want to be next to the rail just because when they train, they get used to like, hey, I'm next to the rail, it's time to go fast? Or why do so many horses cut over when they get off the turn like that?
I think they're used to getting to the rail. There could be a combination that maybe they're getting a little bit tired and they're drifting back down towards the inside. It could be a jockey situation, just trying to get down there, making sure no one's going to come and sneak up and beat you on the inside, because that's one of the worst things a rider can do in that situation. Listen, Two Phils was much the best. It's a shame he got hurt after the race. It's a shame he's retired, and he might have been the best 3-year-old in the country.
I agree. And look, the Ravelli quote about Secretariat. Oh man.
Yeah, I'm bring it back. I'm trying to get the right. There it is.
There it is. The Larry Ravelli quote about Secretariat. Give it the proper context, Dan. What do you think he was trying to say?
I have no idea what he was trying to say.
I agree with that assessment.
I mean, you guys have to explain that to me. I don't know where that came from.
It's stunning, John. What was John Piazzich's reaction when you saw that quote?
What the hell is he talking about? Like, I think he just got caught up in the heat of the moment, and the afterglow of winning like that, and then getting hurt a day later. I think he just lost a sense of reason, which happens to all of us. Happens for the best. I will say though, the thing about Two Phils now is because he ended his career on a high note, and he never had to run in the Travers or the Haskell or the PA Derby. I think in time he's going to be thought of as a better horse than maybe he was, because now if some long shot wins the Travers, or if nobody really moves forward in the back half of the year, everyone can be like, oh, well, Two Phils would have done this and he would have been great. So I think his reputation, in a way, could be elevated by his unfortunate retirement.
So are you saying that he was just ducking Forte the entire time? So
he was going to run in the Derby, dude. I think he wasn't ducking Forte in that race, but it is fascinating too, because I think after watching him as well, Dan, I mean, are we at the point where we have to take the Jeff Ruby Stakes seriously, or is this just a 2-year blip, you think?
Oh, I think it's a 2-year blip. I don't think you really want to talk about races all of a sudden being important key indicators for certain future races. For years, the Remsen was the key 2-year-old race, and I don't remember the last time we've seen a Remsen winner actually do anything on the track. It goes in stages. Two Phils was always a good dirt horse. His Jeff Ruby was exceptional. He really seemed to handle the Tapeta. I think he just happened to mature at the right time. I think looking back on Two Phils' career, John makes a good point. Maybe people will think he's better than he always was, but I think people are going to look back and say, why didn't they run this horse in the Preakness? Because he probably won that race.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because, given the way where that race played out and the way the Ohio Derby played out, really no reason he couldn't have won the Preakness. And then if he gets hurt now, at least you can be like, at least he got his grade 1, rather than, he never got it. And now it's kind of like, what might have been kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Grade 1 second, and winning a grade 1 after that looks a lot different on the breeding sheet than it does winning the Ohio Derby. I agree.
An Ohio Derby champion.
That goes to show sometimes you got to strike while the iron's hot, because I'm sure they thought, oh man, we'll have all summer to pick up these big wins. You don't have to run the Preakness. And then, man plans, God laughs.
It was the fastest Equibase speed figure in the Ohio Derby since the 2006 version. And if anyone can name who won the 2006 Ohio Derby, then they are the horse racing expert of the year. There's no chance.
Yeah, go ahead.
Deputy Glitters was the name of the horse.
I remember him, but I didn't remember if he won the Ohio
Were
Derby.
you even born in 2006, Piazza? Come on.
Oh,
All right, so that's
Mike
that.
had been married for 20 years in 2006. It's the whole thing. Yeah.
I've been married for 6 years. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
All right, Louis, do our read for the horse racing one. Oh no, I get the little sound that we did now. Here we go.
I recorded this so I wouldn't have to work.
You guys will enjoy this. I mean, if
I think Illman doesn't even know what he's about to do. So this is great.
This is great.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Welcome to Horse Racing 101 with the Horse Racing Happy Hour, sponsored by the Maryland Horse Breeders Association. There's no better time to breed and race in Maryland. Maryland breds racing in open overnight races in Maryland receive a 15% owner bonus and a 15% developer bonus with a top 3 finish. To learn more about the advantage of breeding and owning Maryland breds, visit us at marylandthoroughbred.com or call them 410-252-2100.
All right, getting text on the text that we're now Maryland homers. So
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
Well done.
All right. So, Dan, we have had 2 versions of Horse Racing 101, sponsored by our friends at the Maryland Thoroughbred Breeders there. And they'll be hanging out with us all the way through Breeders' Cup, actually, hanging out with us for the Breeders' Cup shows as well when we head up to California. Dan, if somebody wanted to eventually work for the DRF, what was your route to the DRF and what does your day look like now?
My route,
By the way, no pressure. Jana Antonucci kicked off this segment.
my route to the DRF was of nothing but being very, very lucky and right place at right time. I graduated from the prestigious Nova Southeastern University with a bachelor degree in liberal arts, and I was ready to conquer the world, but unfortunately, jobs are scarce in the liberal arts field, as we've all known. But I've always been a horse racing fan. I've always liked to write. I was the basketball announcer, the baseball announcer, etc. in college, the sports editor, everything. A multifaceted guy as I am now. Actually, what I did was back then, John's not going to be familiar with this, but there was something called want ads in the newspaper, and I looked at one, and there was an ad for a sort of handicapper / page layout editor / something at Sports Eye, which was a harness newspaper out in Long Island. I decided, okay, let me take a shot. Got that job. And about 6 months later, there was an ad in the paper for Daily Racing Form, just a sort of an entry-level thing. Got that job. I've been there for 25 years, moved the way up. And what's my day like now? I get up probably around 5 in the morning. I finish up my Laurel analysis. I write articles. I call trainers. I annoy them with questions about their horses. I write recaps after the stakes races. I write the analysis every day for Maryland. I do videos. I do whatever they need me to do, and I love it.
Are you watching race replays at 5 in the morning? What are you doing at 5 in the morning?
I take
yoga. What's going on?
I take the analysis really seriously. I mean, because I want to bet these races in Maryland. So for me, I'm looking at pedigree. I'm looking for track biases. I'm looking at replays. The great thing about the Formulator past performances with DRF is I could put my trip notes in every race for every horse. So I pretty much have a detailed history of my own personal past performances for every horse. I have a trip for just about every horse in the race. That to me is really kind of a big deal. I'm looking for something that you may not see just off the cold dope. Something if you could watch in a replay, a video, find a pace edge for a horse. That's what I'm trying to do.
Have you? I mean, a quarter century.
I want to sign up for that.
No, that's awesome. Could you imagine having done anything else? And what would you have done had you not done this, do you think?
Interestingly enough, I had a sort of, I had an internship at Madison Square Garden all set up for me right out of college. And I was kind of interested in seeing where that was going to go. Would I be helping out the Knicks, the Rangers, something like that? And horse racing's always called me. I've always loved horse racing. When I was a teenager, I worked on the backside with some harness horses at Yonkers Raceway. And I guess the thing was, the internship paid me $5 and a lunch voucher. And I was actually going out in the real world and making a little bit more than $5, maybe $7.50 working for Sports Eye, and would have a real respectable job. So I don't know. It was always horse racing for me. If not, it would have been Madison Square Garden internship and then maybe working at Starbucks.
Knicks
What
or
do you
Rangers?
want?
Which one would you prefer?
I'm
Would you?
Dan. I'm not going to write your name on this cup. What do you want? Yeah, it'd be great.
Very pleasant.
Yeah, right. Latte, get out of here.
I got a cold brew from Marfa.
You're getting a mocha frappuccino. You're going to like it.
Here's your 2,000 calorie drink. Now waddle out of here. Yeah, it'd be terrible. Yeah.
All right, so Knicks or Rangers? Which one would you have preferred?
Yeah, that was my follow.
I would have preferred basketball, to be honest.
Okay.
I've always liked basketball. I called basketball I did play-by-play and color because there weren't that many people that were interested in actually doing radio at Nova Southeastern University. B, we were on cable FM at the time, which meant that if you had a CB in your tractor trailer, you could listen to the games, or if you had a special box in your dorm room, which nobody had, you could listen to the game. So it was a great experience.
You had like 4 people listening to the calls, huh?
Oh yeah, but there's some great calls. Still got the tapes.
Sure.
And those 4 people, I mean, get out of here.
Trust me, as the voice of the Derby City Distillers, I totally get it. He was elevated.
That's also
to assistant
that's
coach
basketball.
before the
Believe it
end
or
of
not.
the,
Yeah, there you go.
before the end of the season. So,
Oh man,
yeah, there
Good.
you go.
that was
Taking a little bit of
horse-
Jim Caravellis, who was the caller for the Knicks on WFAN
Oh,
for
yeah.
a while. Trying to throw some things out there. It was great. Players love me.
Who's this guy again? Why is he in the locker room? Yeah,
Why is
right.
he here?
They definitely
Trying
knew
to
it wasn't
shower.
the free agent that they were bringing in to take his job or something like that. You know,
Yeah, right.
this isn't the new power forward taking Oakley's position.
Yeah.
Back then, you sat like right near the rim. So if the ball came too soon, or if a giant power forward was going for a loose ball, you were getting decked.
I got to admit though, I'm kind of excited because I'm going to be credentialed. It looks like this year for Kentucky basketball, so it's going to be pretty interesting to do.
Be
so
fun, man. You're welcome.
should be good. Yeah.
I'm kidding. It's just come on, it's funny.
Yeah.
Mike.
Uh,
I do. It's a joke. Anyways, keep going.
all
All
right.
right. Well, thank you. That was Horse Racing 101 with a handicapper. How about that? So we've had a trainer, a barn manager, and now a handicapper. So we are making the rounds of people within horse racing. At some point, we'll get back to I don't know. Well, maybe a trainer or a groom at some point. Probably, hopefully, get somebody on the backside.
Yeah, we got to get
What
some
it is that
stuff.
they actually do. That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of different jobs in horse racing, so
It's as diverse a sport as you could probably find, frankly.
I would
as
agree.
far as finding stuff to do, for sure. So,
all right. So we ready to do a little handicapping?
Oh,
let's
yeah.
do that.
Do it.
Can we start with Laurel?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Are you good with that, Louis?
Shocking that John's into that. Yeah. No.
I'm going outside of the show sheet. So we're going to talk 2 races at Laurel, 2 of the 3 stakes races. Then we're going to start with race 8, which is the Laurel Dash, a 6 furlong sprint race on the turf for 3-year-olds and up, $100,000. John Piazzik, you go first. Let me know what you think about who's going to win the Laurel Dash.
Very nice field here. There were 7. 7 in the main body, and then 2 main track onlys. As much as I am loath to pick morning line favorites, I did land on number 2, Midday Image, 9-5 on the morning line for David Jacobson, who is very sharp with his shippers down here. He has been sending quite a few horses since early April, and he's had a pretty high strike rate. This one has won 3 in a row since late December at Tampa Bay Downs. He also has a pretty solid field in his 2023 debut, which came here at Laurel back on April 13th, faced a field with a lot of solid mid-Atlantic sprinters, beat them pretty soundly, took a bit of a hard time getting to the front. Once he did, though, he kicked clear impressively, won by a length and 3/4, ran a big figure on the Visnet scale of 91. Last time out at Belmont Park, kicked away easily once again after getting a good stalking trip near the pace. He's in very sharp form, should get a great trip, and I think will be tough to beat. In fact, even though it's a step up in class on paper, I'm not so sure this is a tougher field than the allowance field he saw at Belmont last out. So I don't think this group is too much of an issue for him.
Any chance of rain, by the way, on Saturday?
Slim.
Okay.
Is there, it's as of now, a chance of thunderstorms, but at this time of the year in Maryland, it's always a chance of thunderstorms.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right.
take that with a grain of salt.
All right, Dan, what do you think?
I agree with John that Midday Image is the horse to beat. He's the most likely winner. He did have a perfect trip last time out in New York. He just parked himself right behind a speed duel. When those horses fell apart, he inherited the win. He also is going to have to do it without Lasix in this stakes race. So if you want to take too short of a price, you might want to just try to find somebody else. There are two other horses in here that caught my eye, although I do think Midday Image probably gets through this race. Smokin' Jay is one of them. We saw him in Kentucky last time out, and that was a race where he fell far behind. There was no pace for him at all, and he was motoring in the stretch, and I think he'll get a little bit more to run at in this spot. But he'll be the alternative from a betting standpoint as the second choice. So let's look for a bomb. Let's try Noble Emotion. This is a horse that I think is a little bit dirtied up on form. He was in against Caravel, who's the best turf sprinter in the country, a couple of starts ago. And last time out in the Jim McKay Turf Sprint, we were at Pimlico that day. That turf course was yielding nothing but fast times. It was rock hard. It was speed favoring. This horse didn't get out to a good start. He was last early, and he lost all chance. Getting back to Laurel with the longer stretch, I think he'll be running at a price.
All right, Louis.
Yeah, I really like Smokin' Jay in this spot. He ran behind Bad Beat Brian last out, who's placed in a grade 2. I mean, Bad Beat Brian's a serious turf sprinter, and so interesting to watch. Dan, is Whitty going to stay in this field?
I see that Whitty has entered Sunday, and I have a feeling he might run Sunday. And I know where you're going because of his pedigree. I have a feeling he's going to run on Sunday.
Okay, that's what I assumed. And so would have been the first move to turf for the Hendricks barn there, and not turf sprints isn't what the Hendricks barn does. So I kind of assumed the move would happen there. But I think Smokin' Jay is a serious contender in this spot, 5-2. But Midday Image, I mean, is absolutely the horse to beat here. Like Dan mentioned, if you're looking for an angle, it's going off of Lasix. Horses never won without Lasix, and so if you were looking for a reason for that, that would be it. But the non-Lasix race he's been in before was against Gufo. Which is a little bit different than what we're talking about here. And so might be one that we can run back. But again, I think you can go a little bit skinnier. Unusual in a turf sprint. Usually I like to gather a couple of horses for a turf sprint as far as a longer ticket. But I think the 2 and the 5 here are going to be your favorites.
Race 9 is the concern. 7 furlongs on the dirt. 3-year-olds only. We're going to get to see John's favorite horse, who I'm not going to mention because I've heard him say the name too many times. $100,000 is on the board here. Short field, 5 horses, and it's top heavy. Dan, can we just toss out the 1 and the 2 here?
I think you'd probably toss out the 1 and the 2 here. The 1 should at least be somewhat of a pace factor. Maybe he could affect the outcome by bothering some other horses. My goal in this race is to fade Coffee with Chris. I know he's dropping out of the Preakness. I know he has run some very big races in Maryland. And I know he's turning back to a distance, which I think he's going to appreciate, which is sprinting. But I'm all in with Recruiter in here. He's a sprinter. He's 4 for 4 lifetime sprinting. His last race on turf, I'm uninterested in. His race on dirt, 2 starts back, going a 2-turn mile. He destroyed that competition. He's the best speed. I think he puts the 1 away, turning for home, and he holds off Prince of Jericho.
Louis, how about you?
I agree on Recruiter. I mean, Prince of Jericho is interesting here just because I thought he ran above average in the Chick Lang, and that's grade 3 company, that's open company at Pimlico. And so if he can turn back and have a similar, 109 type 6 furlong effort and hold on to it that way under Sheldon Russell, I think he's got a serious shot. But I agree. I do think the Recruiter is the horse to beat here coming out of that Lynch barn. And so interesting to see if he can get back to what Dan talked about here. Shortening back up. Dan, I'm stunned to hear you say that about Coffee with Chris, only in that I know you love that route to sprint angle.
I really do like the route to sprint angle, especially at this sort of elongated sprint. I just think we've seen his best race. He's run so many times. I have a feeling we've seen his best. I'm not sure we've seen Recruiter's best. I'm not sure we've seen Prince of Jericho's best. I just love Recruiter's early speed edge. And I know Coffee with Chris is a fast horse. I do wonder if his speed is going to be dulled somewhat, cutting back in distance. Recruiter has looked good in his sprint races. I just think he's going to be in front turning for home.
John, they're breaking your heart. Go ahead.
No, I think this race is a matter of how many lengths Prince of Jericho wins by. I think he looked like much the best in this group. I think there's going to be a lot of speed in this one, as you guys have noted. Bristol Channel on the inside will show speed. Recruiter is going to go. I have a feeling Coffee with Chris is also going to be very pace prominent, especially because, as I've said, at least privately a few times, and now I'll say publicly, I don't think Jamie Rodriguez was aggressive enough in the Preakness. I think he let National Treasure kind of walk, and he really shouldn't have. So I kind of wonder if he's going to overcompensate here and maybe get caught with Chris in a duel that he doesn't belong in. And if the pace is fast, Prince of Jericho has great tactical speed. As Louis noted, he closed well for second in the Chick Lang. He has shown a lot of promise on this track. He's won on it 3 times, run some big figures in those spots. I think 7 furlongs is a good distance for him. He's already won a stakes going away at 7 furlongs. Beat Coffee with Chris in this particular bid back in January. I think this race sets up very well for him. And at the top of the stretch, he could just blow by and embattle Recruiter and embattle Coffee with Chris. And at 16th pole, Sheldon has put away the stick and just glide him home.
All right. Dan's shocked.
Wow.
Right.
I mean, I love the confidence. I really do. I love the confidence. I would say, and I would take the Chick Lang with a grain of salt, because you remember that's the race where the odds-on favorite broke down. The other horse in the race won. Somebody had to run second. He ran very well, Prince of Jericho, that day. He did. And he could easily win this race. And maybe he will win by open lengths. And John, if he does, I hope you're cashing.
All right, we're gonna move on to Church Ellis, as Louis likes to call it.
Old Church Ellis,
and we're gonna start.
Is there one spire there?
I don't even think there's any spot. I don't even know if there's
There's soybeans.
Yeah, there's pea patches. Yeah,
soybeans, and there's a water tower, I've been told.
Huh.
And they try to keep the horses off the road. That's all it is.
They're working on it.
All stakes pick 4 here. We're gonna start with. You can say this is Stephen Foster Day, but the Fleur de Lis Stakes lately has been, to me, the star of the show. So the Grade 2 Fleur de Lis, maybe not as brilliant as it's been in the past. Check out these last couple of winners of the Fleur de Lis. All right, last 5 winners: She Dares the Devil, Latruska, Midnight Bisou, Elate, and Blue Prize. That's what kind of talent comes to this race. We don't have.
Someday we'll get a filly or mare in this race that you've heard of before. I apologize to the general public for that list of unknown horses there. So.
We don't have the star power, I think, in this one that of those races. But it's still going to probably be a good race. Louis, who do you like here?
Yeah, I think there's a potential star in this race, and I kind of think that's the difference here in that you have a 4-year-old in Amo Ray who I think that could be an eventual superstar. I don't know how other people feel, but we are looking at a bunch of thunderstorms and super high temperatures in Henderson this weekend, and I'm wondering if we're not going to get some kind of wet track or some kind of at least a lot of moisture in the track by the time we run these races. And if that's the case, by the way, I think the 2 favorites are absolutely miles ahead of the other horses in this based on their wet figures. And so I think between Amo Ray, the 6, and 5 Clairiere, I think you can kind of wrap this.
Pauline's Pearl.
Pauline's Pearl. Excuse me. God, I even wrote Clairiere in my notes. And so I think Amo Ray may actually be a single if it is either good, muddy, whatever it might be. I think she's just going to absolutely eat it up. I think an interesting entrant here is the 1 Bellamore, coming back off the turf, turning in a recent solid second place in that Grade 3 Fall City over Thanksgiving at Churchill, behind Played Hard. Played Hard is a Churchill Downs specialist. She's won her last 2 there. I think the weather might affect her a little bit too much, so I think maybe she's not a total play. But 10 times hitting the board in 15 lifetime runs. If you need a horse underneath, I think Bellamore, the 1, is one to use.
All right, John Piazzik, what do you think?
Well, first of all, based on what you said, I am a little surprised this race is not a Grade 1 yet. You'd figure at some point they would give it a lift, maybe next year, if Amo Ray does move forward and becomes a top horse. I do kind of agree with Louis. I think it is kind of hard to see past the 2 favorites. Pauline's Pearl, obviously a lot of back class. Amo Ray has great wet form, but even though I was not a big fan of who last started in the La Troyenne. One horse I kind of like, at hopefully a bit of a price, is a lightly raced filly for Al Stahl, number 3, Royal Take Charge. She only raced 4 times. This is her stakes debut. Won 3 times. Broke her maiden at Churchill pretty impressively last November. Battled on the lead throughout, held on to win by a length. Since then, she's won twice at 2 turns. Last out at Churchill back on May 27th, ran a huge race. Rated off a pretty slow pace. There was a bit tougher close off of, kicked away, won very easily. Ran her best figure in months. Think she's getting good at the right time. It's a big jump up in class, but I think the price is going to be right. And if either of the top two favorites falter, it'll be a prime opportunity.
Not only is this not a grade 1, but they've actually it's no longer a win you're in for the Breeders' Cup discount. They took it away.
So bizarre.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I mean,
what else did they have to do?
I don't know.
Who else could be in the race?
I mean, they got to be Dan Illman approved. So, Dan, who do you like in this one?
I think Pauline's Pearl's going to improve, and she's going to have to because her last two running lines don't look good. She was actually the favorite in this race last year when she lost to She Dares the Devil. I don't think her Lac Troyenne is as bad as it looks on paper. She must have been 4 wide, 5 path on the first turn. She lost ground all the way on the backstretch. She actually made a pretty menacing run on the second turn, and then I think all that ground loss worked against her, and she flattened out late. Louis mentioned that this one likes a wet track. If she gets it, I think she's going to improve. But she's going to have to because her last two running lines aren't great. It's so funny that Brad Cox has improved Amore off Todd Pletcher so much. I mean, Amore wasn't very good for Pletcher, and they sold this horse at public auction. They got her to Brad. Now she's a grade 1 stakes winner. I kind of remember the old Amore, so I'm always loath to bet her at a very short price. Yeah. But it's not like Pauline's Pearl's going to be such a great value either. I think Hardy Constitution might be a horse you might want to use in the exotic simply because she's lightly raced. She's got a lot of upside. Her last win on turf was very, very impressive against a weak field, but I also liked her last win on dirt. I know they have high hopes for this horse, and win or lose here, they're going to Saratoga and look for some stakes either on dirt or turf.
All right, so we're going to move on to race 9, which is the grade 2 Wise Dan.
That's right.
A mile and a 16th on the turf, 4-year-olds and up. I love.
Someday we should have a guy on named Dan who's wise. That would be nice.
Well, we do have a couple Dan eyes on that. Wise. I'm not sure.
Too many Dans on the show. I agree with that actually.
Man, when you think about Wise Dan's career, and I mean, I don't even want to know how many of these wins he had. I mean, once he kind of got into Stakes Company and started winning races, he just didn't stop. He lost 3 of his last 20 something races, and it was unbelievable just to remember how awesome of a horse Wise Dan was.
23 for 31 lifetime.
Any Wise Dan memories for you, Dan Illman?
Not really. He was just a machine. I mean, I got a picture of him up here on my wall with Johnny V aboard.
Yeah.
And we used to have milers like that would just show up every 2-3 months and just dominate. Horses like Lure, if you want to go all the way back to the days of Claiborne. And Wise Dan was a throwback. He showed up every race. You knew what you were going to get. It was going to get a giant effort, and someone would have to run the race of their life to beat him. I always was kind of partial to his half-brother Successful Dan, who was a little bit ouchy, but was okay on dirt and would also run some fast figures, the forgotten part of the family. But Wise Dan was exceptional.
Yeah, it was just an awesome horse. I remember his first win in the Clark, and that was just how awesome he was for that. And just that's when he kind of came on my radar. So, all right, John Piazzik, we'll let you start here and tell us who you like in the Wise Dan.
I'll say this about Wise Dan too. I got to see him on Derby Day 2014 when he won.
Woodford, right.
I was then, Woodford, a great moment. And as good as he was on grass, I do wish we had seen a bit more of him on dirt because, again, as good of a career as he had, I do think he could have had a John Henry style career where he won multiple grade 1s on both surfaces, but his connections had other plans. Set piece is 4 to 5 here on morning line. Picking 4 to 5 favorites is boring. I'm going to try 2 other horses. Number 1, Harlan Estate at 10 to 1 on the morning line kind of jumps out to me. Trained by Whitworth Beckman, a very Kentucky style name there. Gets Declan Kent in the saddle. This one raced twice at Churchill Downs over their spring meet. Closed well both times. Just missed first off a brief layoff in a head-bobbing photo after battling on the pace. Came him off the pace last time out in the Arlington, in which he chased Get Smokin', who I'll get to in a moment. Got up and got third at 27 to 1. Set piece did end up out-kicking him that day. That being said, if you are looking for a horse to round at the exact, if you like set piece that much, no reason why Harlan Estate can't close like that again. Number 4, Get Smokin', 5 to 1 on morning line for Mark Cassie and Ricardo Santana. He's kind of horse I'm a bit wary of sometimes because on paper he looks like a main speed, and first default is like, if he's He's the main speed. He's a serious threat to go get wire. But he's been caught on the lead quite a lot, especially against these types of horses. I mean, go back last year, led most of the way at Saratoga twice, came in fourth both times, led most of the way in at Woodbine, faded late, just barely hold on at Gulfstream Park, lost the opening verse, lost the Arlington handicap. Think he'll go out to the front, and he'll probably get caught in the last few strides. If I had to play this race and try to make money on it, like big money on it rather than just cash a ticket, I might go for a Harlan Estate gets Smoke in exacta box and hope Harlan Estate nails Get Smoke in the last few jumps.
Nice.
Louis, we talk about, whether it's a real grade 2 or not. This does not feel like a grade 2 field to me. What do you think?
Ooh, set pieces here, so that elevates any field of this size or this magnitude. Yeah, I don't know, grade 2 minus maybe. But yeah, I'll let Dan talk because I have a long shot in this race I really like.
All right, go ahead, Dan.
Set Piece won this race, a couple of years ago, and
that
he's
sounds
always
right.
been a real solid horse, a millionaire. There are no Wise Dans in this year's edition of the Wise Dan. I really don't like this race at all. I've looked at just about everybody. I'm not a big Set Piece fan, and after looking over all the other contenders, I think he's just going to win if they keep him out of trouble, and he'll run them down late. If I had to use another horse, and maybe I would, it would be Camp Hope. And this is a horse that, he's shown a little bit of back class in his career. He won a stakes race at Keeneland back as a 3-year-old. He kind of lost his way. They dropped him into a high-priced optional claimer last time out. And I wonder if that was one of those confidence-building wins, because he looked pretty strong finishing that race off. And maybe if he can get back to what he used to be, and this is not a true grade 2 field, he can perhaps pull off an upset.
All right, Louis, who's your long shot?
I like a different horse from that race, actually. Play Action Pass is the 5 here, 12-1, second off the layoff here. Was in that race that Dan just mentioned that Camp Hope won. I think that was an absolute setup for this race. And so I think the Medina Barn gets Tyler in the irons again. I really like that at Ellis Park. He's unconscious right now at Ellis Park, winning over 25% of his races. He's close to 30. I think he picked off another one today. And so I love the addition of Tyler here, that 12-1 price. Because of who the connections are, I think we're going to get every bit of that because of the Medina name rather than something else. And so, yeah, I'm with Dan. I think it's not a question that Set Piece is the class here. 4 for 7 lifetime at the distance. And look, I mean, when you're a turf horse and you win a third of your races routing, it's really unusual in North America that horses win at that kind of clip. And so, especially in this company, I expect him to win. But if I'm going to play somebody underneath, I'll use the 5 here. Play Action Pass second off the layout.
Brad Cox has won this race 3 out of the last 4 years, so we'll see if that trend continues.
Play Action Pass is 2 for 2 on this turf course too. I
That's
apologize.
right.
I totally forgot that part too. Yes.
All right, we're going to move on to the Stephen Foster Stakes, of course, named for the writer of My Old Kentucky Home, Stephen Foster, the father of American music. However, Stephen Foster never lived in the state of Kentucky. Actually, only visited once. Visited Augusta, Kentucky, because he lived in Cincinnati. John Piasek, what famous actor was born in Augusta, Kentucky?
Ooh.
I don't know.
Oh,
Dan Illman, do you know?
No.
George Clooney.
I was going to go with George Clooney myself.
You know what? I might have known that because I knew that his dad was a famous columnist in Cincinnati, Nick Clooney. So
Yeah.
I feel like I could have put 2 and 2 together there. But
Yeah. So he played basketball at Augusta High School. So there you go. The Stephen Foster Stakes. Who do you like in this one? Dan, we'll let you start.
Well, I'd like to see Smile Happy sort of jump up and become one of the better handicap horses in the country. And if he runs his 110 buyer speed figure from the Ali Sheba, he's probably going to win again. He was 7-1 in the Ali Sheba. He might be favored in here. I can understand anyone says, let's see it again. Rattle and Roll is a horse that John and I are fans of simply because he came up to our neck of the woods and he won the Pimlico Special 2 starts back. And we talked about a throwback. This horse is a throwback. He's run 4 times since the end of March. Kenny McPeak is not afraid to run this horse. He has been sort of hesitant to run him against the top horses. And I think it's really interesting that now he's going to strike while the iron is very hot. In the Blame last time out, he was supposed to win as the favorite. Brian Hernandez rode him with a tremendous amount of confidence. He could have taken over the lead on the rail at the 5/16. He decided to be patient. He almost got hemmed in. He got banged off the rail. A horse on the lead got 2 lengths clear of him at the 8th pole, and Undaunted Rattle and Roll just ran him down in the last 16th. He's consistent, and he's going to get some pace in this race. And I think that we'll find out how good he is. Listen, he was a Grade 1 winner as a 2-year-old. He didn't pan out as 3. He's finding himself. We'll be hearing from him late, and I think it'll be a better price than Smile Happy.
John Piazzik, you love Speed Bias. I'm sure you love the Speed Bias Rattle and Roll. You want Speed Bias to take Rattle and Roll down because he cost you a couple $1,000s.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I did hit the late pick 5 with Rattle and Roll on Black Eyed Susan Day. But if Speed Bias won that photo, I would have won a few thousand more. I know the saying is don't look a gift horse in the mouth. But guess what? I'm going to do that. As Dan noted, I am a fan of Rattle and Roll. He has won 6 stakes races in the past 12 months. He won a trio of them in the back half of his 3-year-old year, won the American Derby, won the St. Louis Derby, and won the Oklahoma Derby. This year, he's won the Ben Ali, a Pimlico Special, of course, and the Blame. So for a horse who's accomplished as much as he has, I'm a little surprised he's not getting as much hype going into this race. Yes, they were all Grade 2s and Grade 3s, and this is a Grade 1. In fact, one of the strongest Grade 1s we've seen this year. 7 of the 8 horses in here have won a Grade Stakes this year, Speed Bias being the other, and he missed by a nose. So you'd think a horse who had proven himself over and over again against very good horses and always kind of runs that same race where he gets his pace, shows his kick, and wins, would be getting more respect. However, I feel like a lot of the love is going to his stablemate, Smile Happy, rather than him. Rattle and Roll is 4-1 on the morning line. I think at that price, he's a good play. As Dan noted, there's going to be a lot of speed in here. West Willpower, who won the New Orleans Classic, is going to go. So is Big Cat winner, Stiletto Boy. Speed Bias should also be near the pace. Think if the half is around 47 or so, that'll set up very well for Rattle and Roll's late kick.
Louis, who do you like here?
Am I allowed to love Proxy in this spot? I mean, I think
Grade 1 winner in the race, right?
No, Stiletto Boy won the San Diego Handicap. I know Stiletto Boy. I mean, that's Stiletto Boy's the horse I cannot figure out in this field because if he fires, he's capable of it. But it's absolutely. There's so much. I don't know. There's a lot going on. I think if any of about 5 or 6 horses win this race, I wouldn't be stunned. There are about 2 that I would be stunned if they actually won this race. They're on the outside in Last Samurai and Happy American. Like, stunned's probably a bad word, but I would be surprised at least. I really like Proxy in this spot. I think that he's consistent. I think that we're going to see another good ride out of Joel Rosario on him. Seems to be the best jockey for him in this spot when he's not in, when he's not outside of Churchill and outside of Oaklawn, he's very good, right? When he's in this bubble. And so I'm hoping the Ellis Park is part of that bubble for Proxy. I do think Stiletto Boy is absolutely a possible here. I totally agree on Rattle and Roll. I would not be surprised if Speed Bias finally does break through and win a race like this. And if he can run like he did at Pimlico and bring that back, remember that was a mile and 3/16. We're going half a furlong less. Mm-hmm. He wins that race if that race is a half a furlong less. So, I mean, at 12-1, get Louis Size again. I mean, he's at least in that conversation. And then, I mean, Smile Happy, I don't know what he has to do for us to like him. He does seem to be a little better every other than he is, on consecutive races, but that's a very small criticism of him, frankly. And so I think this is actually a very interesting field. Sometimes in the Foster, we don't have interesting fields just because the summer schedule sets up the way that it does. I think this is absolutely a Grade 1 field. Very fun. But I'll put Proxy on top, and I think Stiletto Boy might surprise here.
All right, we're going to move on to the Tepin, another horse I kind of fell in love with when I started covering horse racing.
Oh, yeah.
And just, her last year, she won 3 races in 3 different countries. She raced in 11 different tracks. She went and won the Queen Anne.
Only 3 countries?
3, yeah, only 3. She couldn't get one done in Mexico. She should have, just gone down to Mexico and got one done. Just an amazing horse.
Let's go. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Who do we like here in the Tepin? Louis, we'll let you start.
About that. This is how you close out a card with a $225,000 stakes race. Just wanted to high five the people at Ellis. I'm not mad at Laurel, by the way, because I do think that last race at Laurel is actually interesting. I do like the 25 claimer for not
the big field, at least. It's got a full field.
No. And actually, it's a competitive field too. So once in a while we get the nickels at at Laurel or the 7,500s, and it's like, here are the two horses that are going to be battling in the stretch, and here you go. In this case, I think we've got a lot more to look at. I don't know how to say her name. Is it Shigera? I have no idea. The 5. She's coming out of a WOW race at Churchill Downs. I think she's going to get a ton of money from people who either saw her or follow 3-year-old fillies on the turf here. Look, she bested an allowance field by 3.5 lengths. I think that it's a field also that included older horses. So that she's got going for her. She's dropping back into 3-year-old company here. She's very good as a 2-year-old. Came off the bench. She showed no rust in that race. I think she's a worthy favorite. The only negative angle, if you wanted to have one, is trainer Phil Bauer is 0 for 12 off of this, second off the layoff type race recently, this amount of time off, I should say. She feels a little different to me, though. I think she's absolutely got a shot here. Man, Heavenly Sunday, the 3 is trained by Brad Cox. Won a grade 2 last out. That's when you know people are really excited about Shigera, is that a grade 2 winner's coming into this race, and she's the second favorite. Favorite angle of mine, she's carrying the most weight in this race. Usually that's a sign that you've got the best horse. To me, that's a reason, especially in restricted company, that her results are worthy. Wonderful ladies in here. Longer odds. Again, we get Tyler on a longer odds horse here, again in Kentucky at 8-1. I doubt very much that a Walsh Gaffalione combination is going to be 8-1 by the time we get to post time. I think that the other 2 favorites actually, though, might attract a lot of money. So we might get a 5-1, 6-1 on her, which would be really, really attractive. I think she's improving. I think she's got a real shot here as well. I don't know what to do with Safine. I've had a real hard time translating the horses who have run well on the turf. And we're seeing more of this here locally, guys, because there are no claiming races and no lower level turf races in Kentucky right now. And so our entire spring has been allowances and stakes on the turf here. And so the horses that are in that in-between group or in the lower group have been shipping up either to Indianapolis or to Cincinnati. And so we watched Safine go up to Indianapolis, win $150,000 stakes against 3-year-olds. 5 runs. She's never missed the board. Speed figures improved the last 4 times out. I think she's an upset candidate. So that 2 through 5 group is interesting. I do have Shigera on top, and I would use the 3 in the second spot.
All right, John Piazzik, what do you got?
Yeah, I think it's one of the 4 that Louis mentioned. A topic probably would be Wonderful Lady, as I think she'll be the best value in the field. I agree. Hopefully she'll slip through the cracks and go off at about 5 or 6-1. Race in Europe last year did do too much in her American debut back in April at Keeneland, but did show a nice kick to win at Churchill last time out. Gets Gaffalione back in the saddle. Of course, Brennan Walsh and Tyler, always a good combination. Shigera, the 5, obviously worthy of respect, but Julien Leparoux is my white whale, so if I pick her on top, he'll probably blow it. And if I pick against her, he'll probably give a great run and win. So, but I will pick Wonderful Lady on top here.
All right, Dan.
I want a price, and I like the 7 girl named Charlie in here, who was a stakes winner at the distance 3 starts back at the fairgrounds, and I can make excuses for her last 2 races. She got beat by Heavenly Sunday in the Edgewood. She did not have a good trip in that race, and last time out, 1 1/8 is a little bit too far for her, and she was way too aggressively ridden. This is a filly that likes to sit back in mid-pack and make one run. They went right after the early leader in that race, and she paid the price. So she's cutting back in distance. She's going to revert to the rating tactics that work well for her, and she's going to be a price for a trainer, Tom Amos, that wins lots of races.
Love it. Well, fellas,
and that regret field was a lot better than this one, to Dan's point. And so, if you're looking for a price, I agree on that one.
Appreciate you guys joining us as always. We're gonna pay the tab. We're gonna get out of here. And
well, hang on. Let's let them publicize where they work and what they do.
Well, I mean, they're on here so much. I think they just think they work here now.
New people find this show all the time. I'm told.
That's true. All right.
Yeah.
So, John Piazzik, where can people find you?
Find me personally at They're Off. You want to find out what's going on with Maryland Dreads or what's going on at the Maryland Horse Library here in Reisterstown, Maryland, at Maryland TV. Go on marylandhorse.com/library to find out what's going on at the library. Always a lot of fun events and fun books coming in all the time. And I also want to give special mention to the Jamila Stakes at Laurel on Saturday for Maryland Bred or Maryland Sire fillies and Mary's nice field there. I like a long shot. Gift a gap 15-1 on the morning line. Went gate to wire last time. Think you could do it again at a good number.
All right, Dan, where can people find you?
On Twitter at DRF_Dan Illman. You can find me at DRF.com, writing the analysis for Maryland and writing all the recaps and advances for the Mid-Atlantic region, and the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel where I wear a sports coat when we actually do our videos.
Let's do like a 3-minute Preakness weekend recap.
Okay, that's fair.
Did we do the right thing, Dan Illman, by setting up shop in the fake bar at the top of Pimlico so that we could say hundreds of people came by the show?
I thought it was a brilliant move myself. Plus, you had the choice pick of the food before the animals from the press box came up and vultured everything.
That's flat.
Plus, that beer cooler is like right there.
Nice, huh?
It's right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They do it right at Pimlico. It is what it is. Yeah.
And we had our security guard. Took care of us, man.
Yeah, Samika, she was great.
Yeah, she was great.
I have to ask, when did they, because I confronted Dan about this when I was at Pimlico. The handwritten scratches. I'm still mad about this. And Mike's he's like exhausted hearing about this. When did that go away? Because I'm still obviously not over it.
The handwritten scratches probably went away with the advent of this. There's this new invention called a computer now.
It was 2 years ago.
Louis still trying to figure that one out.
It was 2 years ago.
It's some people like to use those.
I don't like that
devices. So
poor Joe had to hear about it for me 100 times.
Yeah, it was. Listen, he kept on complaining about that as like that one thing that does not matter or move the needle at all.
He came over to find me in my workstation all the way at the end of the press box, and he says, "Listen, I got a pet peeve. What's with the handwritten scratches? I wanted to find your security guard to get this guy out of here."
He just wants it like as like old school and ghetto as possible, basically, is what it comes down to.
It's not ghetto. It was delightful, frankly. It was the opposite of ghetto.
Yeah.
I have to say, one of the best things that happened is we discovered you could just sit at a picnic table near the finish line and take in the rest of the races, which is great. So met a lot of nice people. And John popped by when he was in between Glitterati visits with Maryland people and that kind of stuff. So we appreciate John pretending to know us. It was nice.
Yeah, then Louis went and got a seafood tower when we went out to dinner, and John.
We did go out
at Jimmy's, which was fantastic.
That
place probably has. I was saying this to Mike and Louis. That place probably has the best menu of any restaurant I've ever been to. Like I could go there 20 times, order 20 different things, and probably love all of them. Why? Because it's crab centric, and I love crabs. So there you go.
The crab legs on that tower were fantastic. By the way, they were really good. So, Dan, I guess your invitation got lost in the mail. I don't know.
I was just going to say, but that's all right. I mean, you could have had a good time.
It's called deadlines, and Dan has them and we don't. There you
That's
go.
True. That's true.
Yeah, it was called with Chris lost by 19 lengths. I was like, all right, my day's done. I can go.
Have a beer, yeah, right.
All right, now we're going to pay the tab. We're going to get out of here.
Guys.
All right, always a pleasure.
This has been another episode of the Horse Racing Happy Hour.
As my son.
How that happened to Maryland too?